The PS3 is finally back. We got the best info yet on the next PlayStation showcase. And here's what you should buy in the PlayStation Summer Sale. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to PSReady. This is the midweek update here on the channel. I hope you're having a great week. The first thing I have to talk about today is the PlayStation 3. So on the PS5, the big console that still needs to be emulated is the PlayStation 3. Right now, the thing can play PS1 games, PS2 games, PSP games, and then the two consoles that are left out are the PS3 and the PS Vita. And while yeah, it would be awesome to play some PS Vita games on the big screen, I think the console they really need to work on first is the PS3, because there are just so many games that are stranded on the PlayStation 3. The first two Infamous games, which are awesome. Infamous 1 is great. It takes place in basically fictionalized New York. Infamous 2 takes place in New Orleans. We can, of course, play Infamous Second Son and its like pseudo sequel DLC type thing, First Light, on the PS4 and the PS5, but it's not good enough when you have the first two games stranded on the original console. And then the entire Resistance trilogy is stranded there as well. God of War 3 got a port, and the Nathan Drake collection ported over the first three Uncharted games, which was great. But beyond that, there are just so many games still left stranded on that console that really need to be playable on the PS5. And no, I don't consider the cloud streaming that comes along with PS Plus Premium to be a viable replacement, because it just doesn't work very well. I've tried it out multiple times. It's blocky, the bitrate is low, there's huge input lag. When you're streaming a 720p at best game to your PS5, it doesn't look good blown up on the big screen. The list goes on and on of why that's not a suitable replacement. So right now, the only real option you have is to use RCPS3 on your computer, and it is pretty good, right? Like, you don't get a lot of the online capabilities with a ton of games, and yeah, there are some games that run better than others, but you can do things like play Metal Gear Solid 4 at 4K at 60 FPS, which is a really cool experience, especially considering until recently we had no idea if that game would remain stranded on the PlayStation 3 forever or not. Now it looks like it's going to be coming later in the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection. I guess the rest of that collection leaked, and they're going all the way up to Metal Gear Solid 4. I'm just really hoping that that's not the only solution for all of these games, because we're just waiting on Sony to remaster them then, and then they're gonna say, oh, is there a big enough audience for the 3 Resistance games to get remastered, or even the PSP game to get remastered? And they're gonna sit there and say, probably not, because Insomniac is focused on probably a new Ratchet and Clank and more Spider-Man games, which I'm not complaining. I like Ghost of Tsushima, I like Spider-Man, but I also liked Infamous, and I also really like Resistance, so I'd like to see more studios maybe come into the fold and start working on those games, starting out with the remaster. Like with 343, where the original idea was to get this studio together that was like ex-Bungie people and have them remaster the original Halo games. So Halo 1, 2, 3, and Reach, and then see what made those games work so that they can make Halo 4 and Halo 5 be as good, if not better, than the early games in that series, which, as we all know now, they didn't even do right on the Master Chief Collection. They rushed it out. It was a huge mess on the Xbox One. They eventually got it to a good place, but Halo 4, 5, and Infinite are not really anywhere close to where they should be. But you know, I think with Sony's leadership and insight, the same strategy could work with a new studio taking over Resistance or Infamous, and that would start well with remastering those games. But until that starts to happen, like I just said, we have to rely on PC emulation, which is getting pretty good. The one game that I never expected to see come back, though, was definitely PlayStation Home. Now, if you've never heard of PlayStation Home, it was something on the PS3 that was built as like a meeting space, and I would argue was ahead of its time. It had different rooms based on different games. It had mini games built in. You built an avatar. You could own an apartment. You could show off your PS3 trophies. Like, the idea of what they wanted to do was really good, but technology just wasn't there at the time. And I would argue that the user base wasn't there at the time, and there was really no good way to monetize PlayStation Home, since at the end of the day, it was just like a free meeting hub to hang out with your friends online. But while I think it could definitely come back on the PS5 and be pretty cool, people have been like nostalgic for the PS3 version. But because PlayStation Home is an online only game, and because you can only stream PS3 games to your PS5, that is not one that's available. It's been shut down for a while now, and there was really no hope on it coming back until now. Because there is a group out there who's hard at work rebuilding PlayStation Home for PC. You can emulate it on there, and apparently they had a beta test back in September that was super successful. It got a lot of great feedback from the people who used it. They said it actually worked extremely well, and they actually have an upcoming beta test where it's supposedly going to be even better and more fully featured. I would love to see this get to a point where people can can download and play the original version. And then once that's done, this crew can kind of move on and build up PlayStation Home by adding new features in or bringing back features that were never fully realized to make this look and feel like it was originally announced to be back in the day. But yeah, while emulating newer consoles like the PS3 or the Nintendo Switch does cause a few problems because it provides a way for people to steal games and run them better in the case of the Nintendo Switch and even the PS3, it is a good thing because if people are doing that, the real way to stop it from happening is to re-release these games. I don't think we would have the virtual console on the Nintendo Wii and the 3DS and all that without piracy. I also don't think we would have the subscription-based game collections we've been getting on the Nintendo Switch without piracy, because it kind of pushes these companies into a corner where they have to say, look, people are stealing our games, we just have to provide a way to play them at this point. And I feel like Sony understands that if they provide a way to stream PS3 games and people are still going out of their way to emulate them, that solution is not good enough. And they'll have to start making a way for people to natively play these games on their PlayStation 5. So if you're someone like me who grew up with the PS3, you want to see these games come back, you should let me know down in the comments below. And also definitely check out this revival of PlayStation Home, because I'm going to do everything I can to get into the second beta test. It seems like a super cool and nostalgic way to bring back some memories. But now that we're done talking about the past of PlayStation consoles, let's talk about the future, because I'm not going to upset anyone, I don't think, by saying that the last showcase PlayStation put on was good at best, and that's being pretty generous. It was definitely pretty mid for how long we had to wait for it, and while some of the games that were announced there were cool, overall I think Sony could have done a better job, and it's clear they understand that, because ever since that showcase, all we've been hearing are pretty credible rumors that by the end of the summer we will see another showcase, and now we have yet more leaks that tell us it's coming in August, not September like originally planned, and that's also where we're going to see the PS5 Slim announced. I'm gonna spare you the details on the PS5 Slim. You've heard enough about it at this point. It's basically just gonna be the same PS5, but the disc drive is going to be detachable. It's not gonna have any power boost or anything like that, so that's cool. What people really want to see is more games that they can look forward to in the future, because right now the future looks good with Spider-Man 2 obviously, but beyond that we don't really have much to look forward to in terms of exclusives next year at least. And of course there might be a couple of other ones floating in there that I'm not remembering right now, but the point is now is the time where Sony really needs to start telling us about what games we can look forward to, because Xbox is not wasting any time flexing their Activision pickup. Over on the Xbox Series X, you're able to download older Call of Duty games like Call of Duty Black Ops 2. They had Activision go in and fix the servers for those games to get them ready to be launched on Game Pass for free, but until then you can actually pick them all up at an extreme discount, and more people are playing these old Call of Duties than the current one that's out right now, which is actually kind of crazy but not really surprising. The way Call of Duty has devolved over the years from something you could casually play with your friends on weekends into something where you basically have to dedicate your whole life to it to really be competitive is not really sitting well with people, and I know a lot of other people are not happy with Warzone and the way that's turned out, so it's easy to see why people are reverting to the more simplified, grounded online scenarios we had back in the day on stuff like Black Ops 2. And then on top of that, as soon as it looked like this deal was going through, Overwatch 2 got a listing on Steam. So yeah, like I mentioned, Xbox is wasting no time getting a lot of games put in front of people's eyes, and Sony needs to fight back by announcing some new games. And like I mentioned, this update's coming from a verified leaker named Special Nick. I've talked about him here before on the channel multiple times, and he's actually been pretty spot on in the past about not only when things are going to happen, but what's going to be announced, so I actually trust this source. And I found this through the account TCMF2 on Twitter, which is a great follow if you're a PlayStation fan like me. It says Special Nick claims that he's heard the PS5 Slim reveal event is set for August via a PlayStation show. He also stated that this can change, which makes sense because we've seen this happen in the past, and also he says the FTC document states Microsoft claims PS5 Slim is going to be $399 and come this fall. Reportedly, it's going to be set for a September 2023 release, provides users with the option to have a disk drive or not via detachable disk drive, and detachable disk drive is not usable on the digital versions of the current PS5. The new element there is that this could change during a future update. I really hope they get a firmware update for the digital version that allows the disk drive to work, because while yes, it is cool that they offer this digital only model at a discount of $100 because they know you're gonna go spend a lot of money on the PlayStation Store because you literally have no other option for buying digital games, it would be cool if people were able to get this disk drive working, because of course around Black Friday, a couple of years after games come out, games go down in price by quite a lot, and you're able to actually get PS5 games for $10 or $20 at certain times, and sales on the digital version of the store, the PlayStation Store, do not happen nearly as often, and the discounts are not nearly as steep as they are in physical retailers like Best Buy. Back in the day on the PS4, the sales were absolutely incredible. You could get games for like $8 or $10. Like I remember getting Assassin's Creed Syndicate for $10 the year it came out. The same goes for the Mad Max game. It went on sale for $7.99. I'd love to get back to the days of that happening happening, but you know, now with games being $70 and you know, costing even more than they did back in the day, that doesn't seem like it's really coming back. So that's why I think it would be great if digital users had the ability to use this external disk drive. But yeah, we definitely need some updates from PlayStation. I personally need to know more about Silent Hill 2. I saw people once again on Bloober Team on Twitter, which is something that I really don't get. I like most of Bloober Team's games, whether you're talking about Blair Witch. I also like Layers of Fear. Layers of Fear 2 was awesome. They have more good games than bad. I mean, even Observer is one of the highest rated horror games ever. So yeah, I think Bloober Team is a great pick for this role. And I saw people complaining that they said they looked at direct feedback from fans of the Silent Hill games and said they didn't want to mess with the tone, the atmosphere, the story, the psychological horror nature of it. You know exactly what people love about Silent Hill 2, but they wanted to update the combat because that's the worst part of Silent Hill 2. Look, I get being an elitist and a gatekeeper about this stuff. I'm a horror movie fan. Every horror movie I love, whether you're talking Halloween, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, they've all been remade to death multiple times, and 9 times out of 10, remakes of these movies end up horrible. So yeah, I understand why people might be upset about this, but man, if you're getting upset about Silent Hill 2 having better combat, I think you're just being a hater at that point, because there's no way to look at Silent Hill 2's combat from a like 1,000 yards up and say, oh, it like makes the experience better because, you know, it makes it so much more difficult to fight these monsters. I don't want to hear it. That combat sucks. It wasn't good back when that game came out, and it's not good now. But yeah, a new showcase where we get an announcement of a bunch of games and a bunch of new hardware seems like a no-brainer for Sony, especially with this Activision news happening, and also the last showcase leaving a sour taste in people's mouths. I hope we hear about this sooner rather than later. Next up here, the summer sale is happening now on the PlayStation 5, and there actually are some decent deals. Like I mentioned, they're not as good as they were back in the PS4 days, but you know, they're still pretty good. The first game I want to recommend to you is The Quarry. It's the middle of the summer right now. It's hot, it's July. There is no better time to play this game. It's basically the spiritual successor to Until Dawn. It's got a ton of great horror actors in it, like David Arquette, for example, Lin Shaye, Lance Henriksen. Like if you're an 80s horror fan like I am, you're gonna recognize so many actors. It's a werewolf story set out in the middle of the woods. It also has a weirdly incredible soundtrack. Dead Space Remake is $48, and as salty as I am about EA and Motive right now, I think that game is totally worth it at that price. Final Fantasy VII Remake is $40 for PS5. I think that's a little pricey, especially considering you can buy the game for like $10 on PS4 and then upgrade it for free. And then finally, you've got to pick up Resident Evil Village for $20. This is one of the better Resident Evil games. I don't think it's as good as 7 or the 2 remakes, but I still think it's pretty great. And speaking of the 2 remakes, you can get them in a bundle for PS5 for $14.99, and they are awesome. And I'm talking about the Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes. I love them so much. I think they are so worth that price. So yeah, those are my recommended pickups from the summer sale. The last thing I wanted to talk about today is this box I got in the mail. As you can see, it's from Mondo. I ordered this record back in November from Mondo, and it finally showed up. I'm so glad I remembered and had them change my address to my new house. It would have really sucked if this went to my old apartment. So yeah, back when God of War Ragnarok came out, they announced this like 3-disc vinyl set, and it comes in like a collector's packaging thing. I haven't opened this yet. That's why the plastic is still super shiny, and I had to grab it. It was only $50, and I felt like it was totally worth it, mainly because the soundtrack is so good in that game, and that was 100% my game of the year last year without question. So yeah, it's got this cool slipcover with the blue God of War logo, and then on the back you've got the Greek logo, the red. It's pretty cool. And then here you've got Kratos and Atreus grasping hands, which is sweet because the story is so good in this game. I really came around on Atreus. You've got the 2 wolves that represent Kratos and Atreus. You've got some cool concept art, and then it opens up like all the way, and you get the whole concept art spread of the game and its themes. And there are also some cool lithographs that come with it. I'm just so excited about this. I just got my record player set up here in my new house. I'm gonna be blasting this soundtrack all week long. If you grab this, let me know down in the comments. But yeah, I'm really happy with this package. This wasn't like provided by them or anything. I bought it for full price. I think this version is sold out, but they have some other cool collector's ones available still as well. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you today. Make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.